Good evening. This is Robert Romano with Comicsgate.org. I'm joined tonight by Ryan Tyler Palmer. And tonight we were going to discuss the TSR trademark battle and some of the issues surrounding their demand that Wizards of the Coast remove these legacy disclaimers that they've put onto Dungeons and Dragons products that go all the way back to the late 1970s, the early 1980s, which they say include, quote, ethnic, racial, and gender prejudice. And I find it very interesting, Ryan, what's going on with this. I was not fully aware that TSR had already acquired and it has fully registered the trademark to TSR, the Game Wizards, which was the original trademark, which apparently Wizards allowed to lapse, and which the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has recently approved for originally Justin Lanassa. It's now been assigned to TSR LLC.
Well, actually, for the sake of accuracy, it was allowed to lapse twice. There was actually another owner, in addition to Justin Lanassa, who owned this copyright, acquired it in 2001, did nothing with it for 20 years. And then this, when it lapsed, this copyright was picked up by Justin Lanassa. So, or trademark, that's right, not copyright. Sorry. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
This is a really interesting situation, I think, for Hasbro to find itself in, to allow such a valuable, trade name, in this case TSR, to go away, and they're not making any new products under TSR, and so I guess the USPTO saw fit to approve and fully register this new TSR.
What it seems like so far, too, I wanted to mention that it seems like Wizards of the Coast has done, members of Wizards of the Coast, who knows, maybe just entities on the internet, have done a great job of making people feel bad for this cold, calculating company that destroyed a legacy. The editions, once Dungeons and Dragons were acquired by Wizards of the Coast, have steadily declined. Nobody's buying books. People do buy some of the digital content, but somehow people have been convinced that this is still the Dungeons and Dragons that they love, and that's incorrect. I love the old work from TSR. Justin Lanassa does as well, and just to give people a little insight into his character, his first act upon acquiring this trademark was to take the old TSR building, to completely restore it out of pocket, to buy artifacts and original content to put into this building as a museum that's open for the public. It's open to go in and game and to go and look at these old relics and products and items, reminisce. There's a section that's dedicated to Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's a beautiful sentiment. He did this out of pocket. He never asked for a dime from anybody. He loves this gaming medium just as much as we do, fans.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and now tell me about your background with D&D, and like, when did you get introduced to the game? What's your favorite parts of it? Let me know about that.
Oh God, yeah, I remember being preteen. I was actually in Boy Scouts, and some of my friends had these books, and I had no idea what Dungeons and Dragons was. And we used to get together. We were all in Scouts together, so our campouts by the lamplight, we would be outside or in tents. In the evenings playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's when I was first introduced to it. Yeah.
What year was that?
My friends. Oh, Jesus. It was a long time ago. It was probably early 90s, maybe late. It was early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, like 89. 89, 90, 91 was when, right in that ballpark. It's been a while. I mean, yeah, that was just the beginning. I used to read the source books even when we weren't having gaming sessions. They were beautifully written. They had cool insights about gaming, but to me personally, it's imagination. These DM guides in these books would teach you how to use your imagination and encourage you to use your imagination to create encounters and beautiful fantasy stories for your friends to share together. And this was actually the building block for me eventually aspiring to become a writer. Like, these were the early skills that I learned from these great creators. Just to mention one was Ed Greenwood, of course, I always loved Forgotten Realms, the lore behind it, and that
Mm.
passion that he had for creation translated into me at a young age. And then eventually, obviously, like throughout my life, was my love of fantasy. Um, Seeing it as Ed Greenwood wrote it, and as these great creators, Cook and Gary Gygax, obviously. I have a huge Dragon magazine collection. Tim Kask as well is great. Those magazines were great when he was heading them. So yeah, like those early memories not only were great times between me and my friends, but I think they shaped my ability to read and write and to use my imagination, and gave me the tools that I needed to be an independent writer. So
Wow, it sounds like D&D was a very positive experience for growing up. I agree with that. Me and my brothers were introduced to it probably at Toys R Us by going down the computer game aisle for the Commodore 64 at the time in the 80s. And we would have picked up things like Curse of the Azerbans or Heroes of the Lance. I think those were the first two ones we got. And so we actually played D&D on the computer, C64 for many years, and got through those games. That was a lot of fun. And then from
cool.
there, we found the novels. Actually, that was the next gateway. We were reading TSR novels.
Yeah.
So the Finder Stone trilogy was my foray into the Forgotten Realms. Great introduction. Jeff Grubb, Kate Novak, love that stuff. And then we got into the Dragonlance Chronicles and Legends and all that stuff, and that was a lot of fun, and what just great writing and great stories that you almost wish there were animated and kind of anime adaptations to or something. And it's just like what Wizards and Hasbro have totally mishandled the D&D property in my view, and destroyed the
Oh, and they
Forgotten
did the
Realms in
film.
my
Jeez.
opinion. When they did the before the Sunderin, when they did the Spell Plague 4E was just a catastrophe, I think, for the setting.
I
Uh,
agree. I think it was the time there was a big boom of digital video gaming. And they were trying to figure out how they could make the edition more appealing to gamers, I believe. I mean, this is just a theory. We're just theorizing as fans here together, but because I played 4th edition, I remember you'd print out the sheets with like the at-wills and like the encounter abilities and these kind of things. So you had cards that you were playing in addition to the sheet.
But the insult to me was not the edition, although I've been told it's the worst edition ever. I never bought it. The thing that pissed me off was the fact that they kill Mistra in a footnote in the Chronicle or whatever, the Grand History of the Realms. It was like one of the last products of a Forgotten Realms kind of setting product. And they just kill off Mistra, have Sire kill Mistra, do the Spell Plague in a footnote. And then there's no novels that kind of tell you what happened. And then they're like, it seems like, what the hell happened? And then they fast forward 100 years. And so I think readers who had been following those characters were just left in the dust there. And it's just like, we don't want you anymore. These novels, this setting, we just don't want this world anymore. If that was their attitude, they could have left the realms the way it was, and they probably could have published some other new setting or something that would have been like what they wanted for the Spell Plague. And that would have been cool. Maybe they could have done brought back I don't know, Spelljammer or something like that.
But you have people nowadays, I agree with you on that. And you have people nowadays who are writing content and it seems like they don't love it. These guys who created, the people who are the canon, who created these great worlds for us, loved this, and there was wonder and they were passionate about it. And it just seems like today the content doesn't have that. We see it in everything in comics, obviously, in all of entertainment where people are rebooting franchises, but they were not the ones who created it. And that is fine, because there are people who can do adaptations and put their passion into it if they're genuinely passionate about it. But I think it's more than that. I think there's been the big problem is established canon, and these big companies take over and they buy, and it's switched hands a few times, and they want to establish canon with the crowd. They don't want another Stan Lee. What happened with Stan Lee was he created this universe for a paycheck and was entitled to none of the money. And the fans united behind the creator and backlashed, and decade-long fans, loyal fans, offered to boycott if Stanley wasn't compensated. And so he was cut a deal for $1 million a year for the rest of his life until he passed away, and he got the cameos. He was paid well for those. And so he was taken care of at the end of his life. But
Right.
these companies are very aware of this happening. There's a lot of power in a fan base and people who are the customers. There's a lot of power there. So
Oh yeah.
if they
And you
unite,
see the
then
you see the Seagulls now suing for Superman again or something like that.
that's right. Yeah, we covered that on my channel. I had Paris Collins over, who was actually working at DC while Ditko was there, and he gave us some anecdotes about
Neat.
conversations he'd had with. Yeah. Well, I heard some people talking. I want to say it was on Ethan's channel. They were the fellows were talking about the Ditko case, and they were theorizing and speculating and some things. And I was like, well, hey, why don't we put something together and just give Comicsgate fans the real deal? So I happen to know somebody who was a mentor when I was up and coming, who worked there while he was alive. So we got some anecdotes to share, and we brought Athena Finger, who's the heir to Bill Finger, who designed Batman. We brought those two in
Right.
together so that we could talk about
Oh, neat.
canon and
I want to go
creation
back
and
and watch
establishment.
that. Bill
Cool,
Finger.
man.
Wow. Yeah, that book is so cool. The one that shows I don't know, it's kind of like a children's book, if I recall,
Hmm.
about how he had actually come up with all the most important parts of Batman, and didn't really get credit for it. And so I think that this is a running theme with these corporations, particularly when the smaller companies get bought out. And TSR, I have to say, was so much better, was such a great publisher, world class. I mean, from start to finish. I mean, say what you will about, I guess, the second edition. A lot of people didn't care for Lorraine Williams' reign over there. But all that stuff in the second edition, the first edition, it was just so much better than everything that Wizards came out with after the third edition.
It was
I like what
absolutely beautiful. They were
yeah,
so good.
I like the Wizards third edition. That was cool too. 3E and the D20 system. I was a D20 publisher back in 2001, 2002 ish, and we did Children of the Grave, which I'm going to turn into a graphic novel now.
Oh, you
Um,
did. So you were publishing tabletop games even back then. Fantastic,
Yeah, we
Robert.
did
That's so
I
cool.
did one city book. I'm a failed D20 publisher. I wasn't a particularly good publisher. I wasn't very fast either.
That was a
And
long time ago, but that was cool.
I made a lot of mistakes, truth be told. But you learn from that. You're young, you're stupid, hot-headed, make dumb, rash decisions.
That's
And
right,
so
brother. Yeah, that's what it's all
and
about, man.
D20 what was cool about D20 reminds me a lot of Comicsgate, actually. The
Hmm.
same kind of thing going on, a mini market springing up, and like everyone's trying to do it. I was like, oh, I'll get the campaign setting out there. And so I kind of came up with Children of the Grave when I heard about it. I was like, oh, wow, that would be a great idea. What if I made a campaign setting of my own? I could publish it now. Wow, that's great. And they'll even let you use the D&D rules. Wow, that's so cool. And so it was a nice creative exercise for a couple of years while I was in art school. And yeah, so I mean, I wanted to talk about this though tonight because I think that this is a really important issue. They're sending a really important message, I think, not just to Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast, TSR, by going after these legacy disclaimers, I think are really doing a service for the fans who grew up with D&D and don't think it was racist at all. And so after seeing your posts on Twitter, and I learned about the Indiegogo, by the way, everyone, and you can share this too, there is an Indiegogo campaign going on right now where TSR is basically trying to, keep the trademark. They have the trademark right now for TSR. This is a cancellation proceeding that Wizards is bringing against TSR to get rid of the trademark, but the trademark is fully registered. I'll have to do that one again. Okay. So that's the by the way, that's the Indiegogo campaign. You can look it up. Support TSR against Wizards of the Coast, $2,147. It's going to be $50,000 goal. Lawsuits are not cheap, but you can see here that they have their full registration. The registration number is 6472675. And I suppose if we go over there, you can kind of see what the process was. And why don't you tell the story of how they TSR got the new trademark, which is fully registered. As I mentioned, the registration date was August 31, 2021. And that this is the same logo, I think, that Gary Gygax had way back when on the Federal Register here. So I want you to walk us through how this came into fruition.
Oh, fantastic. Well, from what I hear about how it came into fruition, it was let lapse for 20 years. There was another, I mean, Wizards of the Coast actually let another person file the copyright, and instead of, they didn't care about TSR. Not only did someone register it 20 years ago, but now it was allowed to lapse. Justin was able to acquire this trademark.
Look at that. That looks awesome.
Valuable trademark. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and, this is a symbol of fantasy to many people. To me, I imagine to you as well, Robert. So they were able to acquire this. This process of just registering through Library of Congress. You pay a one-time
Patent
fee.
and Trademark Office.
Or trademark office. Yeah, it's part of loc.gov. Yeah, you do copyrights and trademarks all at the same place. And so you register there, but you can also upload and trademark and copyright your own things. Like, that's the official office. I see all these things online where people are, there's a third party that will register for you. I mean, it's absolutely one of the easiest things. It's easier than doing your taxes. So you can do it yourself straight through. Yeah.
From start to finish, he got started in Justin Lanassa, August 19, 2020. And a year later, he had the registration certificate. So what the heck happened? Did Wizards of the Coast just forget to check to see if this thing was being registered? They didn't even file an opposition.
They didn't care about it. I think that they just didn't care about it because, I mean, we obviously see that with the content that these people, could give two shits about the content. I mean, they're not even publishing the books anymore. If they're publishing any books, it's a very small percentage. I think a majority of the books that they're doing, novels and anything that are based on this content, are third-party licensed out, and they're getting the corporation share. We saw it with Margaret Weiss and Trace Hickman, who are doing they're doing this love letter trilogy for the fans right now, licensed through a third-party publisher. And so I mean, that's their process. So obviously, to me, that's Hasbro that doesn't care about publishing books because they don't feel there's any money that they want. They want the card game, they want the toys, they want the property for to license out so that they can make money. And there's people simping for this company. I'm not saying don't be a big corporation, but I mean, you don't stomp on people who have heart and who have passion, like Justin Lanassa, who purchased this trademark and immediately makes a tribute for the fans, for everybody to share out of his own pocket. You can go to the Lake Geneva Dungeon Museum now, and you can go and play games and experience Dungeons and Dragons and the Legacy in person, make a day of it, play some games. I think that's a beautiful act, I think, as a CEO. It shows that you care.
And a tribute. And now the thing that caught my attention about this, beyond even the trademark, which was astonishing to me that Hasbro could possibly allow this to happen. Someone probably got their ass kicked when this all the way went through here. But I wanted to look at the Indiegogo here so that we can, this was the part that really stood out to me. On this, this campaign here was the legacy statements, and I didn't realize how bad it was what they were saying here about the creation of Dungeons and Dragons. And so the TSR says they're going to pursue in the near future having Wizards of the Coast remove legacy disclaimers that have been placed on TSR based Dungeons and Dragons products from the 70s and 80s, and retractions of any other libel and slander which alleges racism and other heinous beliefs that are incorporated into these products. Is there an echo?
No, you sound fantastic.
Okay, good. And then according to the disclaimer, I thought I might have heard one. We Wizards recognize that some legacy content available on this website does not reflect the values of the Dungeons and Dragons franchise today. Now, they don't say which, right? Some older content may reflect ethnic, racial, and gender prejudice that were commonplace in American society at that time. These depictions were wrong then and wrong today. This content is presented as it was originally created because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. Dungeons and Dragons teaches that diversity is a strength, and we strive to make our D&D products as welcoming as inclusive as possible. This part of our work will never end. Excuse me. So that's what
That's
they're
a pretty
saying.
bold statement to say
It
that
sure is.
some of the greatest fantasy creators of our time, who essentially built gaming culture starting with tabletop and then into video gaming. My editor is working with me on my project. Ed Greenwood created Forgotten Realms. He was one of my inspirations as a child. And he's as long as I've known him, he's never been a racist or a misogynist. Like, none of these guys. These are like the most wonderful people to be around. They just love everybody and gamers. They love their fans. He's written content for free. He told me there's some fans that came up or approached him, and there were loopholes in some of the modules, and he would write their gaming group like an adventure to fill in that story of what happened to this NPC that turned up missing in one of the adventures that they liked. I mean, these are top-notch guys. This disclaimer is an absolute cultural tragedy.
And look at what they put it on. This is the Player's Handbook, first edition, from Wizards of the Coast. They're selling this. And when they sell it, at the very bottom, and by the way, they have this whole history, the actual history of the making of AD&D first edition. Very good history by, what's his name? Shannon Applequine. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. This is a very good history. I bought his book today, Designers and Dragons, because I wanted to see if he wrote the history. Wizards of the Coast is using his history as authenticity to say, this is the full history. No one has a more thorough, definitive history of role-playing games than him. So check out Designers and Dragons on Amazon. And you can, read the whole history there. You know what he doesn't mention? Anything about any allegations of racial prejudice, ethnic prejudice, or gender prejudice. I couldn't find it in the entire book. And this was the definitive history that Wizards says you should read when you're buying the first edition product. But then at the very bottom, there's a statement that Applequine did not write. And that's what the legacy disclaimer is. So you have the actual history presented above, and then a pseudo false history below. And how do we know that? It's because of a 1982 Code of Ethics that TSR had published. It was, I think, for freelancers, but I think it's generally applicable to the publisher, where it said ridicule or attack of any religious or racial group is never permitted. Now, there were other guidelines as well, mostly related, I think, to types of sexual content. They're saying don't have rape in the book or illicit sex relations.
Yeah, but what kind of tabletop adventure would it be if there wasn't at least somebody getting raped in it? I mean,
that's up to the dungeon master, I think. This is
okay. Well,
these were publishing guidelines. And so I think Applequine in his book actually compared this to the Comics Code Authority. But in any event, what it proves is that they had explicit guidelines against the very thing that Wizards of the Coast is accusing them of when they sell this product. And in my view, that's very misleading. It's deceiving. And it's just factually inaccurate. It's just not in the history of the Dungeons and Dragons. That's, of all the things that the stupid shit that they were accused of, as a matter of fact, the Satanic Panic, you had CBS.
Yeah, they were accused of killing kids. Remember?
Right.
Yeah, they were.
CBS.
They were accused of hypnotizing
monsters. Teenage suicides. Then he had that Hatchet job in 1985 by 60 Minutes. I mean, those motherfuckers. But you know what they did? They crawled up TSR's ass to do that interview and that segment. And it was just horrible. I think that what happened with this media sensationalism trying to tie tragic suicides. But, kids who commit suicide, they have lots of hobbies. Some of them might be on a football team or a soccer team or in a play.
Yeah, to try to attribute it to that.
Right,
I think what happened was the child had issues.
Yeah, but there was no 60 minutes. What's this? I think this is the Mothers Against Dungeons and Dragons lady right there. And so that's what was going on in the 1980s, the actual history of Dungeons and Dragons. People were complaining about Dungeons and Dragons, but it had nothing to do with racial, ethnic, or gender prejudice whatsoever. That just wasn't a factor.
I didn't want my statement to get clipped. What I meant was, what I was going to say is that it's obviously tragic, but there was a kid, had some issues and unfortunately committed suicide, and they found books in his room, and
Right.
they attributed, like, there was no correlation between the two. They just found some Dungeons and
Oh
Dragons
no.
books, and their parents were like, well, it's this evil
Right.
shit that he was reading that put an
Right.
idea into his mind that he was, and so
Right. What I found
the whole
interesting, though, as I looked at it, was the CDC actually in 1989 came out and they found that media sensationalism actually could play a contributing role in how news agencies report locally on suicides could actually have an impact on the suicide rate. And so they actually say kind of shut down the reporting in some cases, I think, to prevent other people from having the same kind of trigger or catalyst.
Well, in my personal experience, I was playing Dungeons and Dragons and I wanted to kill myself less. So, I mean, it had the complete opposite effect on me during that time. So,
Oh, sure.
and nobody
Yeah,
asked
reading
me. I
comics
think I wasn't.
and playing D&D and reading the novels and everything. I mean, that was great when, but when we were younger. I remember
Yeah, I
that.
wanted
That
to
was
kill myself at least 23% less. I don't know why my data as a childhood and experiences weren't added into the global statistics, but I mean,
right. But so
there they
there's
are
been a
now.
lot of bullshit. Point is, there's been a lot of bullshit. And if the 60 Minutes, one of the most prestigious media journalism outlets in the entire world, they looked at TSR top to bottom for anything that they could probably include in this special. And they didn't come up with ethnic, racial, or gender prejudice. And so I think that nothing in the history here, nothing in Apple Klein's book about any allegations of racial prejudice or anything like that. And so I think that this is false advertising. I think that maybe TSR should look at filing a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, which has rules on truth in advertising. And there's federal law that allows the Federal Trade Commission to look at issues pertaining to deceptive advertising and deceptive trade practices. And
And I
so,
think that's definitely taking the disclaimer down and not having them them not having the option to take TSR off of the books, because that's false as well. I think I want to say, I mean, I'm not an expert. Someone would have to tell me, but I want to say that they can't just take the TSR trademark off of that old content kit. I mean,
no,
right? They
no.
don't have the choice to, because it was created under that
Oh no, and
label.
that's a
That's what the
potential.
trademark is all
The
about.
fact that they're still selling it may be, I think that's likely to be a part of Wizards' defense or way to say, we're still selling this. And it's like, well, you let the trademark lapse. You have the trademark for D&D, but not for TSR. That'll probably be the response and the answer. So the trademark dispute being what it is. But the truth in advertising part of this, people who want to file a report, they do not I don't think there's a way to formally complain as a business entity to the Trade Commission, but maybe it can be done via federal courts. I'm not a lawyer, so people smarter than me have to look at that. But what you can do, if you as a consumer feel that what Wizards is doing is false, that it's libelous, or that it's slanderous, or whatever, you just agree with Ernie Gygax Jr. and you want this to never happen again. You want these legacy disclaimers put down. Well, you can file a report. Anyone can do this if you're a consumer, if you're aggrieved. You go to reportfraud.ftc.gov, and then you would click something else. If you're going to report a problem, none of these things really apply. Go to something else, because you're going to have to fill in the blanks here. And then you just can fill out this information. You just tell your story. You say, hey, they're accusing Gary Gygax of being a racist, and that is actually false. In fact, TSR had a policy in 1982, when these books were published, that was against racial discrimination and against religious discrimination and against sexual content that would have women in like depraved settings. That was their publishing guidelines. So you can't falsely now, as a matter of trade practice, say that they were racist when they came up with this stuff. I think that's maybe they're going to sue for slander or libel or something. I mean, that seems to be where this is going here. But TSR is promising to fight to have this legacy disclaimer removed, and I think that's a really good thing. It's good for, I think, sending a statement. TSR, the Wizards of the Coast. Again, a lot of people are, I think, misrepresenting what's going on in these proceedings, but the fact is, Wizards of the Coast allowed the TSR trademark to lapse. TSR now fully owns it, and I think for the duration of this trial, they should be able to keep on doing, unless there's like some court order that says you're not allowed to, continue to use it in commerce. I think he's probably required to use it in commerce if he wants to keep up his mark. And I believe if you go to the TSR-Hobbies website, actually you can purchase products right now. They're actually starting to sell stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, and they've got a new product coming out on the 15th. There's a limited supply of them. It's called Dungeon Crawl, and it's a board game that was created as an original with beautiful
We're going to accept
artwork.
those cookies. Sorry about that. Keep
so you can jump right in there and get your copy. 300 limited edition, signed and numbered. So these are going to be a collector's item released from TSR with more in production.
Look at that.
They've already started production of products.
And Sammy Zawa by Ernest Gygax Jr. And he's going to be on Dungeon Crawl as well. So, Ernie Gygax is really getting involved with this and really putting the Gygax name on this. And so,
I mean, they've only had the trademark certificate since what, August? I think. I mean, come on now, like they've already got products out, and they've got more in the works. But what's really exciting, I had Justin Lanassa on, and we were talking with him about the model that they're using. Michael Habermail as well was speaking about their publishing model, and so they're publishing these books, but they've adopted the Image Comics publishing model. So independent game creators can go and have a creator-owned publishing agreement.
Wow.
So they'll work with you on your product, and if it's accepted as a TSR product, you will own all of the rights to your game, and they will just take a publisher cut, just like what was it, Robert Kirkman for The Walking Dead? All that money he made over at AMC for The Walking Dead TV series, he got to keep all that. He's actually on the board of Image Comics now. He was so successful with his independent push after doing Invincible and then going on to Walking Dead. It was a huge success. They're adopting the same model. So they want the big, the passionate creators of the world to publish their work and keep their work, and they want to sell games and make people happy. So they're doing their own work, and they'll publish other people's work as well. They even have a submissions page. So if you have a heartfelt...
They're kind of speculating a little bit about this proceeding that's going on here. I think the way you would get TSR canceled would be if they weren't using it in commerce. And it seems to me like they are.
They absolutely are.
Maybe Wizards is actually gonna, maybe they could lose this easily in this TTAB thing. And then there's another court case. I think they're jumping straight into federal court, TSR, out in Washington State. I think I saw you saying on Twitter that there's another proceeding. I guess and that's what the Indiegogo is about, actually.
Legislation changed within the last decade, and it's not good for the little guy. It was changed to favor large corporations, where when these large corporations are the defendant, it has to be in the home state. It wasn't always like that, but this legislation was changed to under the radar to favor larger corporations, and so
so there's some jurisdictional issues.
So it's just all it was a jurisdictional issue. So they withdrew, and they're going to resubmit without prejudice. So anybody who's talking about whatever the case, a lot of these people are talking about it. They don't know anything about it. This is just being refiled in the correct jurisdiction, because there was a small legality that's not well known unless you've been a large corporation over the last 10 years. You might know about this if you've been in a litigation. You know what I mean? How many litigations have you been in with a large corporation that would be under that litigation? I mean, come on now, like nobody's
now. I think what they're I think what they're doing though is probably trying to skip the TTAB process or forestall it in lieu of a court. Because if you just get the federal court to say, "Oh yeah, they own it," no need to proceed with this baseless cancellation proceeding.
Well,
I
actually,
think that
Wizards of the Coast is probably really familiar with this new jurisdiction legislation. They've been in a lot of lawsuits lately. They were in a lawsuit with Jesus Christ. It was Tracy Hickman and
right.
Margaret
No, they
Weiss
tried to
just
do the same
recently.
thing. They were trying to
They
do the
tried to break
legacy
their contract.
bullshit.
Yeah,
What
they
they
tried
want
to break their contract with them.
Yeah, they were trying to
Illegally.
insert a bunch of woke bullshit. That's what they were doing.
Yeah, and they were getting involved. Well, at first, the first book was turned in, and then that was approved. And then once they started with the second book, and the entire editor team was fired. They brought in a completely new editor team for the second book in a trilogy. Once the project had already started, and they started having problems getting the manuscript approved, and that's where the problems began. And then they tried to break the contract. They basically told these two legendary creators who created Dragonlance for Dungeons and Dragons, we're not firing you, and we're not going to. Oh, what was it they said? Oh, we're not breaking our agreement with you, but we're not going to publish any of the work. And so then that started a lawsuit. They had another lawsuit too. It was regarding something similar, I believe. Not real familiar with it, but I just saw it briefly. I think they probably settled both of them and tried to make it as quiet as possible.
Right. But the lawsuit is maybe even less important. It's like, because what they could do is just kick it back to TTAB and say, oh, this isn't ripe for consideration yet. You have to go through the TTAB process first. And so this trial, like I said, these things can go on for a couple of years. And so I think for the duration of the trial, TSR will be able to continue doing business. And so, there could be some opportunities. They apparently have submissions. And we'll see what happens with that trademark stuff. And
yeah, there it is right there. We were talking about that. Yeah, there's a submissions tab there.
There's another part to this story, though, which I haven't seen included yet, but which I'm familiar with because I've been doing a lot of research on it lately. These legacy content warnings, you see them on Looney Tunes. You see them on things like Gone with the Wind. You see them on Dungeons and Dragons. And the reason they're being put there is something called environmental, social, and governance investing, where corporations, in order to qualify for individual retirement account, 401k funding, which are tax-free under federal labor department regulations, they have to include ESG goals in their corporate charters, which is exactly what Hasbro has done, which, why would anyone be surprised about that? And ESG funds, these environmental, social, and governance things, they include what they call diversity and inclusion objectives. And so these D&I objectives, we're familiar with them in Comicsgate, of course. And at Wizards and at Hasbro and Disney and all of these companies, they're using this as a basis for saying, hey, give us extra money. And it's really worth a lot. In fact, it'll be worth about $53 trillion worldwide, globally, assets under management by 2025. Right now, it's $38 trillion is investing into this type of thing, which is what they're doing here. They're virtue signaling with their with these here they're kind of not really talking to consumers. They're not talking to investors. They're talking to consumers. But this is, I think, a situation where, in order to qualify for these funds, they're making statements like this to say, hey, yeah, we're diverse, we're inclusive. But really what they're doing is they're inventing racism. We just went through all that. There was no evidence, even in the 60 Minutes special, about any racism, even in the history of the book that the Wizards endorses on their website.
It's a scandal. Let's call the Harpers.
Well,
we need to sound the war horn of Mistra, like you said, and hopefully Timora will smile, and the Harpers will come and destroy Wizards of the Coast before they destroy any more legacy content. That's what we need.
Well, I think that considering the numbers, any brands that they own, they'll just continue to do this stuff. There's too much money in it, just to get that capital there. Even if it's not popular, and D&D, it can suffer because of that. There's no more Forgotten Realms campaign setting. Where's the box sets? Where's the books? Where's the module?
It looks like they milked it too. They even used, I want to say they milked it hard. Like they even, they use Forgotten Realms in almost everything that they do. I mean, all of these
Well,
big event. I mean, they're using it a lot, but they incorporate it into Magic the Gathering as well, where they
oh, that's
had
interesting. Well, I
yeah,
understand why you're going to use your brands, and maybe there's still games like Baldur's Gate out there. Now,
yeah,
one
they're
other
coming out
part
with
of this
both.
is it's being federally funded. These ESG funds, they get $762 billion federal retirement plan is going to start investing next year into these ESG funds. So there's absolutely an incentive there for these companies to go woke. And I had Hasbro's. Is this it? Yeah, here it is. This is their diversity and inclusion goals. And basically, I look at it as kind of reverse discrimination hiring practices that unfortunately are allowed under Teamsters v. Weber in 1979. And that's a Supreme Court decision that allows for racial preferences or sex-based preferences as long as they're for minorities and women in hiring. And so a company like Hasbro, in order to qualify for these ESG funds, that's going to go into federal retirements, into IRAs, trillions of dollars. Hedge funds like BlackRock are the largest hedge fund in the world. They have the largest ESG fund in the world. And so you're going to have ethnically and racially diverse employee representation. You can have racial hiring quotas and gender hiring quotas. And that's going to be legal. And it's going to give you billions and billions of dollars of more investments. And all you got to do is just lie a little. Just say Gary Gygax, might have been engaged in racial or ethnic or gender-based prejudice, even though the company at the time absolutely had company policies that expressly forbid it. And nobody during that whole time ever accused TSR of racial prejudice. They were accusing him of being like satanic and a bunch of other bullshit, like they were doing.
They got accused of devil worshippers.
Yeah.
I mean, as being devil worshippers almost weekly, I want to say, but I mean, no, none of the rest of that. I mean, that's all just hearsay.
Right. And then, so what do the SJWs hate about Dungeons and Dragons so much? What does Wizards of the Coast hate about it? Or what do I don't know, woke investors care so much about it? I don't even think they care. I think it's just virtue signaling. So they're just kind of fumbling around thinking, if I do this and I do that to my brand and go, and accuse these guys of racism, maybe we'll qualify for that. And I just think it's not truth in advertising. This is a very deceptive thing, especially when you consider the facts. So maybe they were unaware of the content policy, right? Back in 1982, when they acquired TSR, maybe they just forgot about it. Oh yeah, they were pro-civil rights company, right? They had these anti-racist things in their charter way back in 1982, right? And people were actually criticizing this. I was saying that the author of Designers and Dragons was actually criticizing TSR for having a content policy and praising Wizards for having a more permissive policy. And so it was so strict that, nobody ever accused them of the things that now they are: ethnic, racial, and gender prejudice. And so
but it's all right there that they denounced all of those things right out the gate, and they wanted to do something noble and just create beautiful fantasy for everyone.
Oh yeah.
So now I get it. And I want to say, not only do I get that, but Robert, you are an impressive guy. This was a wonderful, wonderful body of information that you've revealed so far. It really opened my eyes. I mean, I thought, you see these woke ideology. I think it was very easy for them to use this opportunity in our culture where SJWs and this woke ideology has infested every corner of entertainment. It was very easy for them to slip that in there and potentially get people to accept it. I mean, especially online and with the marketing, where you get these squeaky wheels that get the grease, like, oh, grease. They're like, oh, these racists. It was very easy to sell that to people and sell that divisive statement and spread it around. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, you know what they're doing though is very similar to what ESG investors complain about are companies who try to pretend to be ESG, but actually, they have to, kind of, lie about how they're doing it. So one of the things they call greenwashing. This is where like an oil company will say, "Oh, we donated to the environmental cause," or we're giving money to what is that, Greenpeace or something, and they'll give us ESG money now. And they're gonna say, "No, that's bullshit. You're still carbon. You're still you're just greenwashing. We're not giving you shit." We're not investing in you. And so they call
I've
you
seen
a
a
fraud.
lot of greed in publishing. I see it. I
Yeah.
encounter
And
it
so I think
nearly
they're lying about.
weekly, but this is
Yeah, so I would call this diversity washing. That's what Wizards is doing. And that's what really, it's not Wizards though, right? Why are we blaming Wizards? Like, oh, Wizards in control of all this. Bullshit. These legacy and content warnings would be absolutely mandated by Hasbro. This is corporate on high. They're the ones who are doing this. Let's be clear. They'd probably rather not do this. You can tell from the history, this great history written by Applecoin here, that they love Dungeons and Dragons. Like there, it's nothing but praise. It has, has the wrinkles, the personalities and the conflicts. But as the company was evolving, it's nice, interesting history for people who want to learn about the history of TSR. It's a wonderful. I think there's a lot of great YouTube videos, content on that actually. And it's just very interesting. Wikipedia's actually got a good page on that, and just charting the entire history of this wonderful game. And so, like I said, I was a D20 publisher 20 years ago, and, not a successful one. And, I feel like that, there's still that game there, and there's still, a way for it to, not do this to, I think it's legacy. It's really shameful. I think it's disgraceful to put this on. Could you imagine if Marvel did this, like on the original Fantastic Four or Spider-Man? It's like, people would be like, they would be shocked. They would be appalled. But they do this to Gary Gygax. They took the realms away from Ed Greenwood, and just so many bad decisions in the past several years. And it's just
they don't want any of the. It is a cold corporation move. It's about establishing canon. So if the fans get behind Ed Greenwood and he's able to create independent work and create and take customers with him, people who appreciate his work, then that's what they want to get away from. People don't want to give these corporations don't want to give the independent creators the canon, because there's a power that's over the fan base that's involved, and they learned their lesson by watching it happen throughout history. The few times that we've seen it happen where these creators have successfully essentially come out on top. You know what I mean? The fans got behind them and recognized them as canon. And these are things that it's not profitable for these companies for that to happen. Right. So, taking canon away, even if it means, I suspect that even if it means destroying the IP and rebuilding.
Remember Malithur of Hillsfar? They turned him into like a vampire or something. It was retarded. I think in like 4th edition or something. Like they did just 100-year jump. Like main characters were just like totally wiped away. And so that's right. It totally destroyed canon.
And those guys don't get, there's no retirement in this. They did it for passion. These are people who dedicated their entire lives to it. I'm doing my own humble little project. It's just an independent thing. I have a lot of passion for it, obviously.
Is the mail-in list back yet, or do you need to repost it?
We're going to repost it. I had to get a new artist after.
I need a new link to it. If I click on it right now, it's actually, this is Havard Saints 8 Federal Offensive Responders, and you are the writer. This is your YouTube channel, and I just wanted to tell everyone, at comicskate.org you can find Comicskate creators like Ryan, and you just go to creators and you click on a letter, and it'll take you to wherever you want to go, really. Here's creators.
Robert, that was really cool, and you got those images up there. That piece is beautiful. It was done by Darius Verma. We canceled the campaign. We postponed it first. So Darius didn't make it. He contracted COVID in April. Yeah, got complicated. He developed pulmonary fibrosis and didn't make it. But he was very passionate. He dedicated his life to comic books. He was the first Indian artist to come into Western comics. He wanted to bring it back home. He was talking with some publishers back home and wanted to bolster the comic industry in India as well, because he was so inspired by our comic industry. Right. He loved conventions. That's what he wanted to do. So, in the spirit of that, I've been talking with someone amazing who Darius and I both admired when he was alive, and we were talking our theory on comics and talking about what we loved to do a tribute piece. So it's going to be good. We've got someone very good that he admired in the comic industry as well, and you can see he's very talented. His line work was
All
beautiful.
right.
So we got someone that he admired to do a piece for everybody. Everybody's going to get it in the book. When we relaunch the mailing list, we're going to let everybody know too.
Such a
Um,
tribute.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be cool. It's going to be a beautiful thing. And we're publishing his last work, so it's important that we pull out all stops. So it's going to be something very
Oh yeah.
amazing. I want to say that if it comes together the way I have it planned, it's going to be the rarest piece of artwork in comics
Mm.
today. We're going for the very high bar. I've done my absolute best to try to make this something that's universally special. That's kind of like just finding a diamond in the rough or finding that needle in the haystack. It's like that one piece that
Oh
just
yeah.
all the planets align and then everything comes together. So I put a lot of work into that. I've got a new artist who's amazing. He's already started production. He's already been paid to start. And so once we get enough preview material together, we're going to start the mailing list back up.
Look
We
at
want to
that.
try to get as close to finished before we
That's so beautiful.
Darius. Yeah, he's definitely amazing. He was a fun guy too. He was a good dude. It's a big loss to the comic
Yeah.
industry.
Hey, look,
This was
Ed
the
Greenwood.
yeah, this right here, Ed Greenwood. Paris Cullins was the
Oh
artist
wow,
right
yeah,
here.
this is the one I want to go watch. I'm gonna go watch this later.
That's the one you should watch.
This is
Yeah.
really cool. Your streams with Ed Greenwood are really good. I gotta recommend those guys. Ed Greenwood, he created the Forgotten Realms. You know, New York Times
Yeah.
best-selling, campaign setting novels. Just extraordinaire. Like wow, what a guy. That is the inspiration right there for my project actually.
Everybody in the stream was so cool. That was such a fun stream, Robert. We
Oh,
not
I'm
only
gonna
did
go
we
back
have
to that.
Ed, we also Paris Collins is amazing. He worked like
Mhm.
he came in because he had anecdotes to tell us about Steve Ditko, who created the image that we know as Spider-Man,
Mhm.
the designs. He knew Ditko over at DC because Steve Ditko left Marvel and went to DC.
Mm.
But Paris Collins is amazing on his own. He created Blue Devil for DC. He also did a definitive run on Wonder Woman. They wrote a journal entry in a New York journal entry about his run, where he was the one that drew her with muscle tone, like a
Mm.
warrior. Before that, Wonder Woman was drawn like a housewife with a
Oh yeah.
Halloween costume on. You know what I mean? And the
Check
men
that
were all
out. When
jacked.
you click on a video at comicsgate.org, it'll pull up the entire description there. So when you're writing your descriptions, you can keep that in mind, Ryan. It's like, oh,
Oh yeah.
I could put a little essay there, and Robert's website would pick up the whole thing. You could almost kill two birds with one stone that way. It's a
Hey,
little
I
trick.
love the format of your site. That is
Oh yeah,
fantastic. I love
it's
what you
cool.
did with that.
Yeah, and
It
then
is cool.
here you'll get
It is
all the
fucking cool.
latest on every page. You'll get everyone's Twitter handle. There's Ryan's Twitter. There's his YouTube. You can get to his project. We'll get the link on there as soon as you get the mailing list up. I read that's not up right now. So, but Ryan's going to get this book to you guys. And this is your first project, is it not?
Well, we've done some other projects through the studio, and I'm a self-published novelist. I did a bunch of work over at World of Game Design, which is where I originally got connected with people like Ed and Tim Kask. I was
Oh yeah.
actually editing Tim Kask's work. He had a two-part adventure over there. I was edited some work from James Ward, who
Oh,
created,
James
he
Warren.
wrote Deities and Demigods. Yeah, he was doing independent
He
work
did
over
Pool of
there. And so I was
Radiance,
yeah, no, these are great creators. I
and he's
ended
over
up.
with the giant Wonderfield now, right?
I'm not sure. I think they own the rights to the work. They're publishing it, and he
Okay.
wrote it, but
All right.
he's,
So it's
you know,
Giant Slayer.
he's an independent. He's not affiliated with any company directly. He
Right.
just
Right. Right.
writes games, so he's his own thing. This guy's done so much work.
Mm.
He goes where he pleases. He's his own
Oh yeah,
thing.
he said
He's
that.
not he's not tied to anything. You know what I
I
mean?
saw him on with Roe on the War Campaign channel, and
Yeah.
I think Jim was saying that the sales were quote tremendous, and so everyone who went to go support Giant Lands, I think when that controversy was happening a couple of months ago with Ernie Gygax, it really people, there's clearly an interest in the brand. And then with the because at that time I think they were going to do the licensing with TSR Hobbies. And
Yeah,
so
there were
I think
creative
whoever,
differences that had happened, and so
yeah, it
that
was,
was between those companies. It's
yeah. But
unfortunate, but
if you're an aspiring creator, though, all I'm saying is like this brand is viable. Like if you put a TSR label on a game or a story or something, I think it would do fantastic.
Yeah, I think so too. Absolutely. I mean, TSR is the symbol of fantasy and science fiction gaming of our
Absolutely.
era. I mean, so
Oh, it's so
it's a
awesome to
symbol
see
of
it come back.
excellence.
It was so
Well,
awesome to see it come back, and it is back now. Look at that. It's in business, and, Hasbro, their lawyers over there, they gotta be kicking themselves. Somebody got fired, I bet.
well,
Someone
people get
definitely got
so
fired.
hurt
How the
about it.
fuck
It's
did
like
it No, how the
they're-
fuck does Hasbro let this happen? This is just like it's just like, I can't even think of, like, an equivalent, like a political equivalent, like the gargantuan, like, incompetence that it takes to come to this stage, but here it is. But congratulations to, I guess, Justin Lanassa and to Ernie Gygax, for taking on the legacy, and recovering the, reputation, frankly, of his father and everyone who worked on Dungeons and Dragons and made it possible. I actually have the book here. I recently acquired the first edition because all I had was the second edition. Let's see, how do I stop the share there? There we
well,
go.
we were talking before. I get sidetracked because I like to talk. So, but you're asking about this is my first graphic novel. I've done tabletop. I've done a novel. We've done some preview material. I've done a floppy of my own work. I spearheaded a project where we did a 60-page preview through our studio, and now this is my first full-length graphic novel. So we're doing a double issue. It's going to be a 50-page
Nice.
double issue,
Oh, that reminds me.
and so
I wanted to get your opinion of my Children of the Grave stuff while we wrap up.
yeah,
We've been
please.
on for about an hour here. Let me see here. I just want to pull
Yeah,
it
I
up.
think that's good time. This has been great. I'm completely impressed. No lie, I think that's amazing. Everything that you put together. I think you're a smart guy. This was awesome, man. I feel like I'm more informed coming out of this. So,
And I think the
uh,
people who watch it will be as well.
I think so.
And let's look at this one more time here. All right, there's my screen there. Can you see me? All right, yeah, here we go. So when you guys go to comicsgate.org and you want to find me, you go to creators, right? You click on a letter, you'll find Robert Romano. And then you can just click on the sidebar and you'll go to see Children of the Grave here. I hope it hasn't gone down yet. Let's see if it's still there. I think it's been there for almost 60 days. I think they take it down after 60 days, but here it is.
Yeah.
Children of the Grave, Volume 1. The gates of heaven have shut forever. Now the dead pile up in hell. Join the battle to reclaim paradise. Now Mortacia, she's the goddess of death. She has lost the power to judge the dead. Goddess of death, Mortacia, has lost her power to send souls to heaven, the sepulchre, and it's been captured by Erithus, the lord of tyranny. So now Mortacia tries to reclaim her throne in Hades, but must first discover how it all began, seeking mortal champions to restore paradise. So she's probably going to have to venture out of the underworld to find these mortal champions. Who else is going to do it? No heaven, only hell. So what if there was no heaven, but only hell? You are born, you live, you die, and no matter how good you were, you're going to hell. And what if somehow this information leaked to the mortal world? What would the implications be? What would that be like? And so this is my line work. I do traditional, and then I use digital touch-up and the grayscale, the painting. So I'm using the Clip Studio Paint. I'm learning how to use that. This is some panel work from, I haven't really gotten that started yet. I spent a lot of time developing comicsgate.org that I stopped drawing for a long time.
Robert,
It
that's
was
a
such,
damn cool story premise, man. And
yeah,
that
listen,
artwork's sharp. Cool, dude.
yeah, man. Yeah, man. Actually, let me pull up a different screen here. I'll show you. Let's see. I could really show you it up close because I don't think the actually Indiegogo page does it justice. Where is it? Oh, just my messages. We don't want to see those. All right, there it is. That's the page. Look at that. There we go.
Dude.
Open image, a new tab. Let's get in there. All right, that's what I wanted to show you guys.
Check that out.
Yeah. And this design for Mortacia, you're not going to believe this, was actually originally designed by Larry Elmore. In fact, you can see it right behind me. There's a painting back there. When I get off the page, I'll show you guys. But I just wanted to show you guys. So here's someone who's being captured. Some young person who died. She's stuck in hell, and you know she's in trouble. And so Morticia, she's kind of like I'm thinking like this is Batman. This is like Gotham. She is. She's Batman, right? And now she's like I don't know, the Valkyrie lady from Conan. She's just going to do battle. This is Frizzit. He's a hunter demon. And so he kind of, anyone tries to run away in Hades, he's going to track them down. He'll hunt you down, put you back into chains and, you know, torture humanity forever. Everyone's trapped in hell, by the way, all of humanity. So I think that what's going to happen in the world of Danae up, you know, beyond the underworld is people are going to choose like, maybe I'll become undead. I'm going to make a deal and, you know, become undead so I don't have to go to hell. Or some people might choose a station in hell. They'll become a demon. They'll make a deal with the Rithus, and they'll say, "Oh, I'll persecute humanity for eternity. All I got to do is just, you know, sell my soul." Okay, people will do that, and so that's the kind of decisions that people have to make in the mortal world, which is going to be a fantasy kind of whatever, you know, generic Greyhawk style. Or you know, Forgotten Realms, kind of just vanilla kind of fantasy. I just like to move the pieces around the board and have characters like Morticia. There's other gods and goddesses, a pantheon that you would, as you would imagine, from something like that, in a kind of a D20 style setting there, which is what I was doing a long time ago. And right there behind me, that's
now. Are you going to have this colored, this book colored, or are you doing it all black and white?
I'm going to do a black and here's my plan. That right there is the Larry Elmore variant cover. I got his permission. He's going to let me use that to be the variant cover. And that's going to be the black and white edition. That's my idea. It'll be the black and white Elmore variant. I'll do my own cover for the main one. And I'm learning how to use Clip Studio Paint to do coloring. And so we'll see. I might have to hire a colorist. That's a possibility. I think I could do it myself, though. I spent a lot of time in art school. I feel good about the grayscale, and I just need to figure out how to do the flatting, and to, you know, to make, you know, make glazes on there. And,
well,
you know, probably
a good friend of mine that did some coloring work recently for some of the pages, even that we featured in Bullet Maker, told me that there's a program that does all the flatting for you. I could find out the name of it so that you can play around with it. What's that?
Does it work with Clip Studio Paint?
I imagine it does. Yeah, I'll find out though. I'll talk to my guy.
Oh, there's a faster way to do that. I just need lessons though. I should hire someone who I think is good at coloring, in Comicsgate, and be like, "Hey man, I'll give you, you know, give me a few lessons. I need like 3 hours worth of lessons to just, you know, walk me through flatting and what you do after that and how you save it in Clip Studio Paint." Because you know what, Comicsgate people, they should really be charging people with art classes and shit. I bet you people could make money doing that if they were, you know, if it was organized. Like you could almost start like an online academy for that.
If they knew how, hopefully they would be giving you pointers if you wanted to do something creative. I mean, I could try to get, I'm just saying, like, I haven't done any coloring, but he said that, like, if you feel confident with the coloring and you just need flats, he told me there's this program that automatically does the flats for you. Like it automatically fills in sections off the colors for you. So.
And you can learn so much just watching Comicsgate videos, guys. I'd really check out the website at comicsgate.org. And there's a lot of art tutorials. The Bartons are on here. They do a lot of tutorials, and a lot of other guys. You know, Star Circuit, Joe Catapano, he does a lot of drawer streams. Ethan's been doing a lot of drawer streams. He's starting to let more creators on too. That's good news for Comicsgate. And everyone is on here. Everyone that I can find, anyways. I'm always adding new people that are hashtagging Comicsgate on Twitter, or have, you know, Comicsgate creators, and they're promoting. Like there's a lot of people who don't create something, but maybe they have a YouTube channel, and I try to get those guys in there too, who do these kind of promotion streams. And I think it's just a great way of cataloging everyone. And what it does is it automatically publishes everything, Ryan, to social media, so that you know, all of our videos and all of our projects are constantly being posted there. And I think as traffic grows on a hub like this, more traffic will go to everyone's channels. It could become really big, I think, one day, if we just keep at it. And I think if we're still talking about Comicsgate in like 3 years or something, that probably means that that was a really good thing. I meant that many creators were successful, you know, large and small. And so it's great to have you on. And it's great to, join you tonight. And I thank you, and I thank everyone who listened to our live stream tonight. I hope, everyone enjoyed themselves. And you have any parting thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, it was great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on. As far as parting thoughts, give Justin Lanassa a chance. I think a lot of people get caught up in the hype, and I think there's people who have interest
Oh yeah.
in
Well, let me
this
make a comment
medium
on
that
that.
are. Oh,
Let
go
me make
ahead.
a comment on. I think that I watched the video on Indiegogo. I didn't think it was very good. I think they need to kind of simplify what's going on. I don't think it's clear from their Indiegogo that they really need to say up front that they have this trademark right now. I mean, they imply it, but it could be more upfront, like, hey, they're taking us into this cancellation proceeding. We actually have rights here, and they're trying to take them away from us. Under federal law, they have rights to TSR. So everyone's reporting it like they have no right to do this. And it's like, no, the federal government has already awarded this trademark. And so I think that should be really
I
clear.
think people think that they're taking them to court for the trademark, which
No,
isn't the
no.
case. They already
No,
own the trademark. What they're doing, what happened was there were threats that happened as far as how Justin Lanassa should act. As far as what he's doing and what he's claiming with the trademark, even though he owns it, there were direct threats to him. And he asked these people from Wizards of the Coast to produce. From what I understand, this is rumor. Like, we can only speculate from what's public, but it was publicly said that there were threats. There was some kind of threat that happened where he is now taking them to court to establish his trademark with them, and essentially it's like having them call. So you are you're listing what your trademark covers because you have the trademark for TSR, and then calling on them, and then asking them to produce what they have or what they claimed and what they threatened, so you can establish your trademark with them, and through through legal action, protect yourself against further harassment and further unfounded claims. You see what I mean? This could go on forever. It could go back and forth, and then it could be damaging to their company for someone to spread lies online. If it's taken to court and it's handled legally, he's protecting his trademark is what he's doing by doing this, and then he's interested in protecting his trademark further. People think he's trying to make money.
No, Wizards hasn't put anything out under TSR. They could have done that. They could have had like a TSR black label or something, and people would.
Yeah, and it says that there in the Indiegogo as well, that they haven't put any, or in the docket, in the official document, it says they want to see what Wizards of the Coast has legally and what they've done to as far as. You know what I mean?
Going to federal court, like I mentioned, is a separate process from what's going on at TTAB. And so they really have there's no harm in them trying to pursue it that way. And then Wizards is going to try to go through this cancellation proceeding, which should go on for a couple of years. So
I don't know the legal, I don't know the legal terms, because obviously I'm not a lawyer, but they basically want to find establish what their trademark entitles them to. And if Wizards of the Coast has anything as far as documentation to back up any of their claims, or if they have any proof that they've done anything in regards to whatever it is, like acting or they have any type of claim on the TSR trademark, whatever they've done business wise or legally, they're going to lay it all out on the table. He's going to call, and then he's going to protect this trademark. And then, going after this disclaimer is along the same lines that people try to say that Justin's looking for money and for all these things. He's passionate about this. Nothing in any of this litigation says that he's looking to get awarded money.
You're not going to make money by litigating. It costs money to litigate, and he's
protecting the trademark so that he can operate under TSR.
Right. And they're going to pay out of pocket. This is a flexible goal, guys. Like, if he doesn't get to 50, he's going to have to not spend money on this protecting this brand. But I don't think that's going to be true. I think they're going to be selling products.
By slandering it or not doing it,
if you don't want to support the Indiegogo, you want to go to TSR Hobbies and support them that way. I think that's a fine way to do it. Follow these guys on social media. Check it out. and follow the court case. We'll see what the
I mean, for as
federal
little as
judge
a dollar,
decides. We'll see what TTAB says.
for
And
as little as just like Robert said, I mean, it's a flexible goal, so he's going to court. You know, for as little as a dollar, you can get a membership for TSR and be a part of this. So if you care about this, do that. I think you
yeah,
should
no,
do
no, they're
that.
just going to denigrate. With all due respect, if you're just going to denigrate and disgrace the D&D brand by accusing these guys, these creators, these wonderful creators of Dungeons and Dragons, of racism and you know, racial prejudice, ethnic prejudice, gender prejudice. Yeah, I mean, I support this campaign. I say, you know, it's like they don't deserve TSR. Maybe they got D&D and they're going to ruin it, but they don't deserve TSR. Let Ernie Gygax, you know, kind of get back his father's legacy and continue this brand, which has every right to exist. And I think fans will really enjoy, and has, you know, and so they're going to do some commerce. And so let's
And I
get
think
on
it's
with
in
it.
the spirit of Comicsgate as well. I mean, what drew people to Comicsgate was that this was an opportunity for us to have comics the way that we want, to be able to keep our freedom to criticize entertainment and even the culture that's being represented by it, even falsely in most cases. And so essentially have a sanctuary where we can be
Mm.
ourselves and make our own books, and we're not subject to woke ideologies and also these big business practices that you mentioned this evening. Justin Lanasta is the same way. He wants to use TSR as a company to make a sanctuary where passionate creators can make books and make content
Oh
the way
yeah,
they want. You can play
oh
the way
yeah.
you want. Nobody's
Maybe
excluded. They've never made any statement about that, but he wants to preserve classic gaming
oh yeah.
without the big business, you know, technicalities and the big business money grubbing, and then your woke ideologies where everybody's virtue signaling. We don't have to deal with that, and I think it's important for our culture that we do have
Oh
that
yeah.
place. You may not be able to stop it all. You know what I mean? You can't
Yeah, but
do
you
that.
can
You can't
provide an
expect that, but
alternative. You can show people
provide
that
an
there's something
alternative.
different out there. And so with that, I want to say, you know, hail Comicsgate. Thank you, Ryan, so much for coming on tonight.
Hey,
I
it was
think
my
we covered a
pleasure.
lot of ground tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing your book come out, and what's cooking there. I hope everyone, again, check out comicsgate.org. Find Ryan on Twitter and on YouTube. Subscribe to that channel. He has Ed Greenwood on Forgotten Realms. My goodness. Occasionally. And so that's really cool. And just checking out all of the wonderful guests he's having on. Please subscribe for that. Subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the bell for notifications, and have a good evening.